Live and local stories, live and local guests, live and local hosts. Bernie and Sid in the morning.
I'm sure you know those brothers, two white brothers.
All right, Bernie and Sid.
On the air, on the app, 77 WABC.
Full count. Good at bat by Victorino. To the second baseman, Cano. The Yankees are back on top. World champions for the 27th time.
Well, that's the last time the Yankees have won a World Series, a decade ago, beating the Phillies. The book is out, Mission 27, a new boss, a new ballpark, and one last ring for the Yankees core four. Mark Feinsand covered the Yankees for many years for the New York Daily News. He's now with MLB.com. And he is one of the most knowledgeable baseball guys I've ever met. One of the nicest people I've ever met. First of all, welcome to the Bernie and Sid show.
Hello, Mark.
Hello. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate you having me here.
Great to have you. The last time I saw you in person, Bernie, you'll appreciate this, because Bernie would come on my show in Florida, and I dreamed about coming to New York again, getting a job here again, working with Bernie. And I would often tell people that I worked in a broom closet. But for me to say that, that's one thing. You were actually, for more than a year, my weekly guest, because my radio station had and still has the Yankee games down in South Florida. You would come there on vacation, go to the studio, go on with me, Eric, and Steve. So for Bernie and the listeners, when I say a broom closet, am I exaggerating?
A broom closet might be generous. I drove up to that studio, and studio is a very loose term in this situation, and it was literally in a strip mall.
Yeah.
And I pulled up. I was down there for Yankees Marlins, and I came in to talk to you on the air, and I pulled into the strip mall with the address you had given me, and I pulled in. I texted you. I said, am I in the right place? Because this can't possibly be a radio studio. You know, then again, my first exposure to radio was in 1995. I was an intern at WFAN. Bernie, you were there.
Yeah. That's right.
And, you know, the first time I got there, Kaufman Astoria Studios, and then it took me like 40 minutes to walk down in the basement, in the back corridor, and
to find it.
I couldn't find the place.
Step over mouse-sized roaches to get there.
You quickly learn the glamour of the life of radio.
Right.
It's
Who did
quite
you
a
intern
thing.
for?
I did
briefly.
3 different shifts. I did one in the morning where I was with you guys, and then
you were with us on the IMA show?
I guess it was Steve and Russ were after you guys at the time. So I did like a 9 to 2 thing, and then I did a 2 to 7 where I was with Mike and the dog, and then I did Sunday nights, which was the easiest shift because it was Sunday night baseball was on the air. So it was just basically Imus wasn't the best to me. I think I had one encounter with him, and I think he was walking down the hallway, and I kind of got in his way. He said, "Get out of my way, kid." And that was
it. It's not terrible, actually.
Called my dad. I said, "Imus talked to me today." It was very impressive.
I said something.
Right?
But at least when you were at FAN, it took you a while to find it, but there was a glass.
There was.
Like when you did my show in Pompano, Eric Langell ran the board, which was about this big, in the same room as me and you, the guest. There was no glass. There was no other side. And it was all the way back in a strip mall in an office.
Yeah, it was not the most elaborate thing I've ever seen in my life. But you know what? It was a good show. So
thank you. Thank you. You did a great
of it.
job. Thank you. And you did a terrific job there. And now you're doing bigger and better things, MLB.com and this book. And it is the last time the Yanks won a World Series. And the New York Post, just a couple of days ago, ran some excerpts about a big A-Rod party. We'll let Bernie get to that. Let me ask you about this team. It was the core four's last championship together. Jeter, Mariano, Andy. Bernie was there too.
No, Bernie was gone. Posada,
right. But we started to see guys like CC Sabathia, these other folks taking a big role. They brought in, I guess, A.J. Burnett at the time. Teixeira was new. There was really a changing of the guard.
Yeah, there was. And that was really a big key for Brian Cashman that offseason. The Yankees had missed the playoffs in 2008. It was the first time in 15 years they missed the playoffs. They closed the old stadium, so they had a little pomp and circumstance and some stuff to celebrate at the end of that season. But Brian Cashman went into the offseason knowing they were opening this big new stadium across the street, and they needed not only to get back to the playoffs, but to be relevant in the playoffs again. And he looked at his club, and the core four was still there, and there were still some holdovers that were big parts of that team, Johnny Damon, Hideki Matsui. But he thought A-Rod, he thought that team needed a culture change. He thought the clubhouse, in his words, his clubhouse was broken. And one of the main things he did to try to fix that was to recruit CC Sabathia. He said, I not only need you to lead my rotation and be the horse that we need at the top of this pitching staff, but I need you to come in and fix this clubhouse. And CC had a great reputation as a real sort of bonding force in a clubhouse. He would arrange outings to NBA games and spring training, and they'd have barbecues and parties at the house. And CC was a little scared by that. He said, what does he want me to do? And his wife said to him, you just be yourself. This is what you do. You may not realize it, but this is you. And you are this guy who brings people together. And you could see right from the beginning of spring training that year when guys were taking the trips to Orlando for Magic games and having dinners out together that CC really was a huge force on that team in the clubhouse, in addition to going out and being a huge force on the field.
The voice of Mark Feinsand from MLB.com. The book is, which was excerpted, by the way, a big spread in the New York Post a couple of days ago. The book is Mission 27, A New Boss, A New Ballpark, and One Last Ring for the Yankees Core 4. All about the 2009 World Series Yankees team. Mark, the Yankees, of course, that year, A-Rod, of course, Kate Hudson threw a big bash. Sid just alluded to it. You write about it in the book. It's very interesting. Tell us about it.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to give a plug. Brian Hoke, my colleague at MLB.com, is my co-author.
He's
on
a
the book.
great.
I don't want to take all the credit for this book.
No, he's written some great books too.
Did,
he was on here about a year and a half ago with his new book.
He was supposed to be in here with me today, but he tore his ACL in the media game a couple weeks ago. So
everybody has the same Kevin Durant excuse.
The A-Rod birthday party was one of my favorite chapters in the book, and it was one of my favorite things to talk to these guys about because I was on the beat that year. I was there for all the games and all the stuff that went on the field. But it's these sort of behind-the-scenes stories that we got that really make the book. Kate Hudson threw this big party for Alex for his birthday at the mansion he was living in Westchester, and the whole team was there. Everybody showed up, and it was very nice. Everybody was in suits and dresses, and Nobu catered it. And it was a very lovely affair. And then CC Sabathia and AJ Burnett decided we got to crank this party up a little bit. There was a huge pool, and all the tables were out by the pool. He said, and CC said to AJ, we're ending up in that pool at some point. And AJ said, oh, yeah. And they told Alex, and Alex said, I'll be in the pool. And they were like, there's no way this guy is getting in the pool. Everybody's all dressed up to the nines. And at one point, AJ and CC and Alex, they all jumped in the pool in their suits, and eventually the entire team was in the pool, in their dresses and their suits, all the wives, everybody. There was one holdout, Dave Robertson, who was a rookie at the time, did not want to get in the pool. And he was really making a big deal about not getting. People were riding him about it. And Kevin Long went over to him, the hitting coach, and said, Dave, get in the damn pool. Yeah. Everybody's having fun. And he said, Alex bought me this suit. I don't want to jump in the pool in this suit. It's a really expensive suit. Kevin said, he'll buy you another one. Get in the damn pool. And eventually Robertson was coaxed to get in the pool. Interestingly, when we asked Robertson about it last year, even 9 years later, he still had no sense of humor about it. He said, I didn't think it was funny then. I don't think it's funny now.
Well, God. Well, you know what's funny about that? There are some lingering, besides Robertson. Let's go to Jorge Posada, for example. So, and I remember this very, very well, and Jorge still bitches about it today, even down in Boca, the Italian starts. And I'm being serious. A.J. Burnett didn't want him to catch for him. I think Jose Molina ended up catching for A.J. But Jorge was the starting catcher, and one of the best catchers the Yanks ever had. And Girardi actually allowed A.J. Burnett to use Molina and not Posada. And Posada was pissed at Burnett and Joe Girardi. And that's still the case today, right?
Yeah, it was actually Girardi's decision. Burnett is adamant to this day, and CC Sabathia backs him up and says, I never asked for them to change the catcher. But Posada and Burnett had a couple of really rough outings, one at Fenway. Things were not clicking between them. We're talking like early August at this point. It just hadn't clicked. They had some great games together, and they had some really terrible games. And he caught Molina with him the next time, and they had a great game. So he caught him with him again. He had another good game. And Girardi just said, look, this is the matchup. This is the combination that's working. Which, look, guys have had personal catchers for a long time. That's not a breaking news story. What made it a big story was come playoff time, Jose Molina was in the lineup when A.J. Burnett pitched. And Jorge Posada had started, I think the number was 83 of the previous 84 Yankees playoff games. So the idea of Jorge Posada sitting out a playoff game was unheard of. And A.J. Burnett said, I would walk into the clubhouse on the day I was going to pitch, and I'd see Posada sitting in his chair, sort of just skulking, upset that he wasn't playing. And I felt like crap because I knew that he wasn't playing because of me. Because for whatever reason, I couldn't get on the same page as him. Posada, almost a decade later, I asked him about this whole situation, and he's still bitter about it. He said, I feel like I got stabbed in the back. I was never given a chance to try to make it right. And, for Posada to sit out playoff games, especially during a World Series run, it killed him. And it was a huge deal for Jorge Posada, one of the sort of benchmark players on this team, to be on the bench for big playoffs.
Stick around. We'll keep you for a couple more minutes. The book is 27, Mission 27. Fascinating conversation. Mark Feinsand, it's been a decade since the Yankees have won a World Series. Maybe they'll turn that around this year. More with Mark Feinsand right after these words.
Bernie and Sid in the morning, 77 WABC. Bernie and Sid in the morning, the new show, Mischief and More. 77 WABC and the WABC radio app.
Back here on Bernie and Sid, fascinating conversation. The book is Mission 27, a new boss, a new ballpark. One last link with the Yankee core forwards, of course, Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Jorge Posada, and Andy Pettitte. Mark Feinsand, longtime dear friend, wrote the book, and he's now with MLB.com doing great things after spending 17 years covering the Yanks for the Daily News. One last thing from me, and Bernie will follow up if you like, on that 2009 Yankee team. I was there on the air at WFAN with Jody Mack. I'll never forget it. When they had the press conference announcing Alex as a Yankee. And I remember sitting there with Jody and going, man, I don't know, Derek Jeter and Torrey, they don't look all that happy. And Jody's like, oh, no, they're fine. It's fine. They're friends. And for most of A-Rod's stay with the Yankees, it was steroids, not getting along. But there was that one magical season. And in 2009, you owe a lot of that championship to Rodriguez. Only one, but that was it.
You know, it was a really interesting year for Alex. It started with the Sports Illustrated story about him
steroids,
PEDs in Texas. And so it seemed like, oh boy, this is not going to be a good season for him. And then a couple weeks after that, he has hip surgery and misses the first 5 weeks of the season. And you're like, he actually said he was afraid when they told him he had to have hip surgery that he may never play again. Yeah. He was thinking, I just want to be able to walk and play with my kids, because when he heard hip surgery, the first thing in his mind was Bo Jackson. And he started Googling everything he could, and it just looked very bleak in his mind. He came back, first pitch in Baltimore, 3-run home run, and his season took off from there. He ended up with 30 and 100 that year. He extended his streak to 11 or 12 years in a row. The last inning of his regular season in Tampa, he was at 28 and 93 with 1 inning left. He hit 2 home runs and had 7 RBIs in that inning to finish 30 and 100. And that really, I think, played a big part in spurring him on to the postseason. He'd gone through so much that year with the steroids, with the hip surgery, that I think he just said, you know what, it's going to be what it's going to be. And he seemed more relaxed that October, and just took it one at bat at a time and had a monster postseason for them.
Mark Feinsand from MLB.com. The book is Mission 27, about the 2009 World Series Yankees team. I like this story, Mark. The World Series is tied 1-1. The Yankees actually come here to Penn Station to take the train to Philly. And when they get to, tell us what happened.
Yeah, they didn't like that. They take the train down to Philadelphia, figuring it's an easy ride, and they pull into the train station in Philly, and they're getting off the train, and they're coming up the escalator, and there is a throng of Phillies fans waiting for them, flipping them off, screaming, cursing, some of their wives and kids with them. And it was really, Mark Teixeira described it, said it was like Rocky landing in Russia for the Drago fight. It was just like they felt like the enemy. And, of course, they went in, they took 2 or 3 there. And, Johnny Damon with the big double steal in Philly was probably one of the signature moments of the series. But, yeah, they said they got to Philly, and right away they're going, why did we take the train instead of taking a bus that could drop us right at the hotel? Or, the train ride was a very
They did have
experience.
private cars. But
it was their whole train was just them. It wasn't like they were sitting in coach mingling with Yankee fans.
But once they got to Philly, it was ugly.
That was it. Let's fast forward this. And, of course, they did have 15 walk-off wins, and they did the pie in the face with A.J. Burnett, very un-Yankee-like, but that was Nick Swisher and those guys. So they were a fun group of guys. They came together, as your book really depicts, and they won a world championship. Now it's been 10 years, right? And there's other historical facts in place in terms of even decades. I think you got to go back to the 20s before the Yankees did not win a championship in a certain decade. Now we're looking at how many years. It would be 11 years, but what other statistical facts are out there that would make this a long drought for the Yanks?
Well, it's really hard to believe. They won 4 in 5 years from 96 to 2000. And from 2001 to now, they've won 1 World Series.
They've been to 3.
They
lost in 01 to Arizona, lost in 03 to the Marlins.
Yes.
And 1 in 09.
Yep.
But they've done nothing for the last 10 years. So the question is, these guys, the tied for first as of today with Tampa at 40 and 24, and their best players have not played, which for a Yankee fan has to be very heartening. Does this team have it, you think, to get back?
I think they do. I think they're going to have a lot of challenges. Houston is a really good team in the American League. Obviously, if they were to get to the World Series, and potentially the Dodgers are a juggernaut out in L.A., but the fact that the Yankees have been able to do what they've been able to do with Stanton out, with Judge out, with Severino out, with Betances out, Didi just came back this week. It's really impressive.
Don't forget that Hicks was out, Sanchez was out. I mean, some
of these guys have really stepped up. DJ LeMahieu is probably the best free agent signing of the entire year. He's been incredible for them. They would not be where they are without him. Gio Urshela has stepped up. A couple other guys have really stepped up. Tommy Kahnle came back in a big way. So I give Aaron Boone a lot of credit, not necessarily for putting the guys out there in the right spots, but for keeping the morale in that clubhouse up. As more guys went on the DL or the IL every day, it seemed like another guy. Stanton's out. 3 days later, Judge is out. I mean, you've got an 80 at-bats from the two of them combined this year.
Wow.
And Boone has kept this team focused and believing, all right, next man up. And the next man up's been doing the job. Yeah. So once they start getting these guys back, I know people are saying, oh, it's going to disrupt the chemistry. Nonsense. You want Aaron Judge in your lineup. You want Giancarlo Stanton in your lineup. You want Luis Severino on the mound. To me, Severino is the key to the whole thing. If he can come back after the All-Star break and be the big-time ace that he's been the last few years, that's something they need. That's like adding an ace at the deadline. And they still may go out and add somebody else at the deadline, but I think this team is really in good shape to make a long playoff run.
Did you say F the All-Star break?
After the All-Star break.
For a minute.
I love the All-Star break. Are you kidding? I would never say that.
I'm glad to hear that. I misheard you. Listen, Mark Feinsand, again, the book, Mission 27. So now if the Yankees do not make the World Series, given that they sustain their situation with the substitute players, I mean, what happens then if they don't make it? They don't have any excuse, really, because, again, they had the depth and they're doing well. Fairly well.
I don't think anything happens. If they were to lose to Houston in the ALCS, Houston's a really good team. Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, it's a really strong team out there.
Even Minnesota.
Minnesota's been great this year. I'd like to see them go out and add a starting pitcher, maybe a reliever to really bolster that pitching staff. But their lineup's been great. If you lose to a good team, the Yankees lost last year in the first round, and everybody, Aaron Boone's got to go, and this and that. They lost to a team that won 108 games and ended up rolling to the World Series.
And they did beat Oakland, too, in that wild card game.
So I think, Boone's done a great job this year. I don't think anything happens if they don't get there. If something catastrophic happens and the team just falls apart and crumbles, that's a different story. But if you get to the playoffs and you lose in the playoffs,
there's no shame in that.
That
you keep
happens.
saying Boone did a great job, and he has done a great job. And Bernie remembers last year, I was getting furious when people were all over Aaron Boone. I'm like, stop. You sound like an idiot. Managers are responsible for maybe 5 or 6 wins a year. That's it. So the guy that really should be getting the credit for the depth is not Boone, it's Cashman.
Absolutely.
Cashman signed LeMahieu. Cashman found guys like Tachman and Urshela and all these guys on
Voigt?
Scrap heaps. Luke Voigt, the guy was in the minors. So let's give Brian Cashman some credit for finding a bunch of guys that have stepped up and done the job. That's on Cash.
Absolutely. Cash has done a great job with this team. And if you look, the Luke Voigt trade may go down as the best trade he's ever made. He's made some really good ones. It was a very under the radar. It happened on the trade deadline day, and everyone was like, oh, the Yankees got some minor league first baseman. The guy's got 30 home runs in 102 games. So, he's been able to identify, and that's a lot of the analytic guys, and his analytics department identifies which guys they think have underperformed and are due for better performances. But I think Cashman's done a great job. And in this era of baseball, the GM gets more credit than the manager, period.
Sure.
Because
he built it.
Not only did he build it, but a lot of times the analytics people up in the front office are telling the managers, all right, here's who needs to play today. And I don't know exactly, I'm sure Boone has input on that, but the front office is more involved with the day-to-day operation of the team on the field than ever before. And, Cashman's put together a really, really good front office, good mixture of scouts, good baseball people, guys like Tim Naring and Jim Hendry, and the analytics guys like Mike Fishman. Brian's got, done a great job, not only with his team, but with his front office crew as well.
Oh, Mark Feinsand, it was a pleasure talking to you from MLB.com. The book, Mission 27. I'll read you the subtitle. A new boss, a new ballpark, and one last ring for the Yankees Core 4. That's the book, Mission 27. All about the 09 World Series Yankees team. Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with the book.
I appreciate it, guys.
We love you. Sandy's great. We'll take a short break. Wrap things up on the Bernie and Sid show right after these words.
Bernie and Sid in the morning, 77 WABC.